So as many of you know, our family, Tanner and Brecken and I and 20 other people all went to Italy this last week. And I'll just say that God blessed the entire trip. It was truly amazing. I'm not going to spend a bunch of time on it, but it really, really, really was just magical. But Tuesday night, we were in Rome. And we were on the outskirts of Rome. This company usually doesn't stay in the city center. And so we were on the outskirts of Rome, and I was so exhausted. We were doing in Rome like 16,000 steps a day, so it was a lot. It was a lot for me, who's not used to that. And so I was so tired. I went to bed as quickly as I could, and I was awakened at 11:30 p.m. By severe banging on my door and panic screaming from the hall, which is exactly what you don't want to hear in the middle of the night. And so I jump up and I'm like, who is it? And there were some kids from our group. And I opened the door and they're like, Mindy, the hotel's on fire, the hotel's on fire, it's all burning, it's on fire. And I'm like, what? What are you talking about? And they're like, it's on fire, look outside, there's smoke everywhere. So I ran to my balcony and I peeked out and there was like major gray smoke coming from the opposite end. And I told Tanner, I'm like, I don't know what's happening, but something's happening because there's a lot of smoke. And he's like, but there's no smoke alarm. And I was like, yeah, there is no smoke alarm. So what is going on? And so I go outside and it's complete chaos in the hall. The same person that had woke me up got everybody else up, and there, plus the other towns who went with us, and there were a good 30 kids, teenagers, in the hall. Okay, long, skinny hallway, and so it was just complete chaos for a little bit. And I was trying to wake up, and I was trying to get my bearings, and I was like, what is going on? And they're like, it's on fire, the hotel's on fire. And I said, but are you sure? And they're like, yes, it's on fire. And so I go, I'm like, well, let's go look, okay? So I walk all the way down the hall, and I get to the other side, and I look outside. There are firefighters, there are policemen, they're talking to each other. Nobody seems too panicked on the road. And we noticed that it was actually across the road from us, the situation. Apparently a car had caught fire, probably an electric car, and it was under a tree and got the tree also. And one of our kids was sitting on her balcony eating her fruit she had bought from the grocery store that day, and all of a sudden it just right in front of her eyes. It was a true Chicken Little moment. She jumped up, ran inside, screamed to everybody in her room that the place was on fire, and they jumped up and ran out, and it just spread like wildfire. And I turned around and I was like, guys, we're not on fire. We're at the end of the building. Look at them. They're not panicked. They're talking. That guy's laughing. That fire truck just drove off. We're fine. And they're like, are you sure? And I was like, yeah, it looks good. One of our adults ran downstairs, came back up. They said, we're fine. It happened across. Well, all in this panic, I turn around and I look, and this older man is kind of wandering in the hall, just bobbing and weaving and talking to our kids. And one of the kids run up to me and they're like, we gotta go because he told us to. And I was like, who told you to? And they were like, him, that man right there. He told us to get outside. And so I was like, but who is he? And they're like, we don't know. Maybe he works here. And I'm like, I don't know either. But why are we listening to this guy? Because we don't know him. This man woke up, I believe, in his confusion also, could not hardly speak English at all. and was going down the hall in panic to the kids who were running like chickens and saying, "You get out. You go downstairs. Get out." And so they believed him. The next morning I was talking to our tour guide and I was like, "Dude, complete chaos. You know, it was just crazy." And I said, "But the crazy thing is, this random older man was telling all the kids to run and get out." And he's like, "Who was he?" And I was like, "I don't know." Nobody knew who he was. He was just panicked too, and he was telling everybody, "Get out, go. You got to." And he, he's using the words that he knew. Well, at that time, one of the boys from Louisiana comes over in a very strong Louisiana drawl, and he said, "Yeah, he told me to get out." And so I listened. I grabbed my stuff and I got my passport and I was out of there. And I just died laughing, and I was like, memories, right? Like we all were fine, we all were safe, and it was complete chaos. Everybody went into survival mode. I learned a few things. I'm pretty sure if it happened to me in real life, I didn't even put shoes on. Like I was out of my room immediately and I had nothing with me, except for I was trying to convince Tanner to get up, who didn't hear fire alarm, and so he wasn't moving. And most of the kids, they were running around and they had managed to get shoes on. But this one boy, we're going to have to count on him because he actually prepped and he was ready to go. Fully dressed, all ready to run. In survival mode, you realize what your reaction's going to be. What really, truly is important to you. We've been studying about the life of Joseph. And Joseph, we've been talking about the last few messages that I gave. And if you haven't heard those, you can go back and listen to them on YouTube as always. But we're not going to really linger back there much, as just to remind you that he was sold into slavery by his brothers. And then he was falsely accused of adultery and thrown into prison by his boss. He was released out of prison and he was put in charge of everything. Okay, that's kind of the gist of the last few messages that go with this. And so we find ourselves now in chapter 42 of Genesis. And we find ourselves, find these guys in survival mode. Okay? They had 7 years of prosperity, just as Joseph had predicted. And now they are well within their 7 years of famine. And so everybody outside of the city walls is basically starving to death. And so no family is different from this. Everybody outside the walls was starving, and so was Jacob's family. And Jacob is Joseph's dad. Okay? So Joseph's family was starving outside the walls too. And in verse 1 it says, when Jacob heard that grain was available in Egypt, he said to his sons, "Why are you standing around looking at one another? I have heard there's grain in Egypt. Go down there and buy enough grain to keep us alive. Otherwise we'll die." So Joseph's 10 older brothers went down to Egypt to buy grain, but Jacob wouldn't let Joseph's younger brother, Benjamin, go with them, for fear some harm might come to him. So Jacob's sons arrived in Egypt along with others to buy food, for the famine was in Canaan as well. Basically, Jacob had already lost one son, and he was not going to lose the other son, his youngest boy. Since Joseph was governor of all Egypt, Egypt and in charge of selling grain to all the people, it was to him that his brothers came. When they arrived, they bowed before him with their faces to the ground. Joseph recognized his brothers instantly, but he pretended to be a stranger and spoke harshly to them. "Where are you from?" he demanded. "From the land of Canaan," they replied. "We have come to buy food." Although Joseph recognized his brothers, they didn't recognize him. And he remembered the dreams he had had about them many years before. And he said to them, "You are spies. You have come to see how vulnerable our land has become." So in come the brothers. And the dreams that happened in the very first part of Joseph's story have come true. His brothers are literally bowing at his feet. The first dream he interpreted, the brothers were going to be bowing at his feet someday. That's one of the reasons why the brothers despised him so much and sold him into slavery, right? And so here this comes true, and Joseph takes a mental note. Whoa, this is just like my dream that happened so many years ago. And so he takes that mental note, and the brothers have no idea who Joseph was. I believe he was 17. Well, I don't remember how old he was. He was very young whenever they sold him into slavery, right? Yep, 17. And now he's 30, okay? So he's grown up. Most of us don't look like what we did when we were 17, unless you happen to be 17, and then you probably look, strangely familiar. But he had changed his look so much that his brothers did not recognize him. And so here they are asking to please, please, please buy food. So he checks them on their intentions. And he tells them, he questions them and says, "Are you spies?" And he's not being mean right here. He's just trying to get to the root of the matter. These guys did something really bad to him, and he's trying to see, are they actually legit now? Like, have they grown up? Are they improving? Like, and also, where is his baby brother? What happened to him? And so he's a little bit questioning what's happening. So Joseph throws them in jail for 3 days. That probably had to make him feel pretty good about that. And then it says he lets them go. And then he tells them, "Don't come back until you have your baby brother. And just for insurance, one of you is going to stay behind. And you're going to stay in my jail to make sure that you do come back with the baby brother." Right here, they never say who it is. Later on, they say that Simeon, the brother, was the one who was left behind. So off they go with their food to go help their family, okay? And so they get there, and now we're flipping over to chapter 43. Because not long from then, they run out of their food. And so in verse 8 of 43, it says, Judah said to his father, "Send the boy with me, and we will be on our way. Otherwise, we will all die of starvation. And not only we, but you and our little ones. I personally guarantee his safety. You may hold me responsible if I don't bring him back to you. Then let me bear the blame forever. If we hadn't wasted all this time, we could have gone and returned twice by now." So their father Jacob finally said to them, "If it can't be avoided, then at least do this. Pack your bags with the best products of this land. Take them down to the man as gifts: balm, honey, gum, aromatic resin, pistachio nuts, almonds. Also take double the money that was put back in your sacks, as it was probably someone's mistake. Then take your brother and go back to the man. And may God Almighty give you mercy as you go before the man, so that he will release Simeon and let Benjamin return. But if I must lose my children, so be it." So Jacob's put in this really hard spot, and his sons remind him, "Not only will you starve to death, Dad, but all of your family, your grandchildren, your great-grandchildren, they're not going to make it unless we leave and we go do this." They were in survival mode. Something that jumps out to me about this text is Jacob still was wealthy according to the world's standards. He still had tons of money, but he had no grain to buy. He had tons of items and things and stuff, but he had no food to provide for his family. He had balm, which would be like lotion. He had perfumes. He had honey. He had all kinds of things that wealthy people in his time had, but he didn't have the bare basic of bread. And they ate bread with every meal. It was a staple of them. And so here he is with all of the things in the world. And his family is dropping off bit by bit by bit, because he couldn't use those items to purchase the one thing that mattered. And his family was not going to survive. So he was in survival mode. There are things that matter in survival mode, and there are things that do not. The things that matter in survival mode are you are going to be very concerned for your life. You're gonna fight to the death to save your life. And you are going to fight for your loved ones, right? Like they are your people. They are your family. They're your friends. Like they're worth fighting for also. In survival mode, those are the only two things that matter. That's it. Nothing that he owned or had purchased or anything mattered except that. Whenever we had complete chaos in our hotel room, I didn't care at all about all of my things. The cool souvenirs that I had just bought, the neat t-shirt none of it mattered. I just needed to check on people. 99.9% of us didn't grab a thing. We just ran out. Now the one Louisiana boy, he's, above average. And so he did. But most of us were in panic and just trying to get to each other to make sure we were okay. That's what happens in survival mode. Jacob is put in this position of he cares about his family and he cares about himself. And so he will get rid of all the things that he had to keep him and his people alive. Honestly, he would probably even give up himself if he could just keep his people alive. Survival mode. Things that don't matter in survival mode, stuff. It just doesn't matter anymore. Have you ever been beside somebody whenever they're taking their last days in this world? What are the things that they're worried about? It comes to a point where they don't care about the possessions. They don't care about the home, the stuff, nothing. They want to spend time with their loved ones. They want to make peace. They want to have forgiveness. They want to have reconciliation. They just care about their people. And I think you and I would be the same thing. We get so caught up in this world and the things of this world, and it consumes us. But in reality, we came in with nothing, and we will leave with nothing. The only thing we leave behind are our people, our legacy. That's it. And that's really all that matters. Jacob was in the same boat. When the fire happened in our hotel, the only thing that mattered was people and themselves. When everybody was dying of starvation, all they cared about were the people and themselves. At the end of our lives, all we're going to care about, honestly, are our people, not even ourselves. That's truly all that matters in a time of survival mode. In my office, I have a picture of my kids' feet. And Titus's feet look giant, but it was because Brecken was just born, newborn pictures. So he would have been 8, and so his feet look very large, but 8-year-old's feet, pretty small. And it hung in my living room forever, and now it's in my office, and I look at it constant. And it has this scripture in it. It says, 3 John 4. I have no greater joy than to hear that my children walk in truth. And over the years of raising kids and all the roller coasters, that's legitimately my goal. I just want my kids to walk in truth. I want them to understand what the truth is. I don't want them to listen to what the world says is truth. I want them to understand what the real truth is. And in John chapter 14, verse 6, it says, and this is Jesus talking, red letters, I am the way, the truth, and the life, and no one can come to the Father except by me. He's it. Jesus is the truth. At the end of this walk in life, when we're ready to change to our eternity home, that's the only thing that really matters. Yes, it matters that our children know how we felt about them and we pass our legacy on to them. But our eternity is our responsibility. Our kids' eternity is their responsibility. In the end, eternity is eternity. It's forever and ever and ever. John 10:9 says, I am the door. And if anyone enters by me, he will be saved. There is no other door to heaven besides Jesus. Period. I heard someone this week tell a whole group of people that if they walked through a door, that he would see them in heaven. And at the end of it, he said, and I quote, I will see you in the next life because you just walked through the door. And my heart just, and I thought, no. There's no brick and mortar door that's going to get you into heaven. But that's what he was telling people. There's no door but Jesus. Period. In survival mode, at the end of our walk on this earth, possessions will mean nothing. All of the hours that you are putting into your work, all of your things that you have purchased, all your money that you built up in your bank account, your reputation in your community, your everything. It's not going to matter. None of that's going to be beside you at the gates of heaven, at the great judgment, deciding where your eternity is. If we had the power, we would drag everybody with us, right? Like we would force feed. Like if I could just make my 3 kids get that is it. None of this other stuff matters. Like Jesus, period. Everything else is extra. I would just pound it into them and take them to heaven with me. We would do that to everybody. Nobody would choose to send somebody not to heaven, right? We all want that for our people. If you guys will stand up. In survival mode, there are 2 things that matter. You saving your life for eternity, and you taking care of the people around you that you love. If you haven't shared Jesus with the people that you love in a while, it might be a good time. If your kids are not walking the way that you would hope that they would, if they're not following Jesus, don't give up on them. Just keep praying. You just keep praying. Don't give up. Keep loving them, being the light of Jesus. You might be the only Jesus that they see in their lives, but do not give up, because eternity depends on it. And ultimately, you don't get to choose for others. But we can pray for people, we can love people giants, we can share Jesus with love. We can speak truth, not judgment. We can just do the best that we can. And then we let go and we let God. Because He's the one who can work the miracles that you and I have no chance of doing. I just want to know when I leave this world that I did my best. That I worked as hard as I could. I did what God told me to do, and I did my best. If you died tonight, where are you going? Do you know that you know that you know without a doubt that your heart is right with God? And that if you opened your eyes on the other side of the world, and you're there in your judgment day, are you going an eternity to heaven, or are you spending your eternity in hell? You can't take anything with you but your soul. The altar's always open. If you feel in your heart that you need to pray and get things right with God, I urge you not to wait one more day. We are not guaranteed tomorrow. This is not a scare tactic. This is truth. If you have a child who is not making the right decisions, who is not following God, pray for them. Just keep praying for them and know that we are too. We're family. Let us know how we can pray for you and your family. Let us be an army that helps and supports each other. Let's pray.